Hey everybody, hope you're having a good day. My name is Aubrey and I am a rural entrepreneur working in rural MP. We make soaps, and for those who don't know, we make small batches of soaps made mainly with milk. Those batches range from 30 to 60. And we name our soaps after people who have either inspired me or others. It's the start of something amazing for me. I'll be interviewing a lot of people who have inspired me and my work, who I've named our soaps after, right? And I hope people hear about their work and why they have inspired our work. So in today's video, I have Kester sharing his thoughts and views of what he does. Kester is a family friend. I've known him for the last 10 years. And what really inspired me was the way he approaches his work, the way he teaches, the way his students love him. He is a very innovative teacher, and he makes sure that he creates a very inclusive environment for all his students. I want people to understand his story, his approach, his methodology, the way he sees things through his eyes. So thanks, Kester, for being on this call. Really appreciate it. So just for our audience, just tell us something about yourself.
So, thank you for the introduction, Aubrey. I am a soft skills trainer by profession, but I have diversified into teaching where I work on communication skills and basic English for students of all ages, whether it's pre-primary, primary, um, first to fifth, middle school kids, high school kids, senior secondary, all the way up to university students and working professionals.
So where are you working right now?
Currently, I'm in Jaipur. I work for this organization called Sunstone Education Private Limited, and I have been deployed at Jaipur Engineering College and Research Center, also known as JECRC, which is in the Sitapura industrial area of Jaipur.
There's one thing that I love is talking to a lot of teachers from our generation, right? There's a different enthusiasm to it. I find them to be very enthusiastic in what they do. So what drives your passion to teach? It's really fun talking to people our age, our peers. So what drives your passion?
So, to tell you about my passion is a little what should I say? It's dangerous territory. I personally was a very poor student. To give you a little background, I have never passed a class without failing after the eighth standard. So I failed in the ninth, I failed in the 10th, which is a board exam. Trust me, those years are best forgotten. I failed in the 11th, and then somehow, luckily, in the 12th, I did very well. So when I sat back and thought about it, that, what was the differentiating factor that all of a sudden, after 3 years of performing so poorly, I was able to do so well in my 12th board exam, I realized the factor was teachers. So by God's grace, I was exposed to amazing teachers when I was in the 12th standard. And that is where, to be honest, I was inspired, impressed, and understood the value of a good teacher, a teacher who could tell students that it's okay if you've been mischievous. It's okay if you've not done well in life so far. It's okay if you don't have, the intellect or the enthusiasm to do XYZ tasks. If you just put your mind to it, if somebody just sat you down and, really explained to you why you needed to do things and how you needed to do things and the impact that it would have on the future, that I think was the real driving factor, that I realized that, if I wanted to do something for mankind, if I wanted to do something for humanity, it was to help students just like me. So how does this influence your methodology in teaching? Because right now, students have the short attention span. You have ADHD, a lot of ADHD also students with that, as well as a lot of people are, very confused. A lot of older students are very confused about the future. Many of them are scared. A lot of people don't like coming out, you know
a lot of people don't even know about counseling and stuff. So how do you approach your methodology of teaching?
Okay. So there's this old adage that says teachers are not your friends. Somehow I'm challenging that adage. I'm not making them friends in the sense that, both of us are catching a cup of coffee after class or we're hanging out together. But within that classroom, I want them to be my friends. I Number one, try to build some kind of personal connection with each and every one of my students for the simple reason everybody's fighting their own battles, Aubrey. I don't know your challenges and you don't know my challenges, but I can guarantee you both of us are facing some challenges. In the same way, a kid could be 10 years old, he could be a teenager, he could be in his post-teen age. He's going through some challenges that probably you and I have no clue about. So my first um, goal or my first aim when I enter a class is to identify the challenges that my students are going through. Second, I try to give them my 2 cents on how to deal with that challenge. Now, by God's grace, because I have around 2 decades on them, I've seen a little bit more of, the world. And at the end of the day, most of these challenges can be broadly classified into a few groups. So the steps that kids need to take to overcome the challenges that they feel right now at the end of their world are very basic. And like I said, as you grow older, it comes naturally to you that if you have been unable to do something, the solution is very simple. It's just that in the moment we get lost and we feel like we've made the biggest mistake in our life. But that's rarely ever the case. We always overthink and we give too much power to the problem which doesn't really exist. So that's my first step. Number one, I try to develop a personal bond, a personal connection with them. Second, I always try to make them identify the enemy. And Aubrey, trust me, technology has done a lot for us, but mobile phones are the enemy. You just mentioned shorter attention spans, you mentioned ADHD. Most of these cases are linked to social media and social media abuse. So I try to explain to them that the enemy is the mobile. And it's a very common, what should I say, characteristic between students, especially of, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. They end up using the mobile phone anywhere on average between 2.5 to 5 hours a day. So this increases obviously with Gen Z, with Gen Alpha right now, due to their parents, they are still able to restrict it up to a certain aspect. But I've seen that parents get so sick and tired and so fed up of everything that's going around them that they feel the solution for a little mental peace. Again, I'm not saying the parents are wrong, but when the parents are so desperate for a little mental peace, the easiest solution is give your kid a screen and he'll sit in a corner for hours on end.
So my question now is, how do you counsel parents when it comes to this, and what advice do you give them?
Again, my go-to advice to parents is the future is uncertain. You can create the most extensive and comprehensive life plans, Aubrey. But again, there's an old saying that says life is what happens in between the plans that you make. Every student, every human being has potential, every human being has gifts, every human being has talents. We need to nurture them, we need to find them, we need to explore them. Trust me, I myself have friends who have been working in jobs for around 2 decades. That's a little bit about my age group, but most of my friends have been in the workforce for 2 decades, and barely 2% of them can say they are happy. Why? Because again, they had a life plan, they had responsibilities, they've stuck through their jobs. A job should not be something that you have to do just to pay the bills. A job should be something that can empower you to build a career, that can empower you to be more successful. And the I believe the golden rule of life is entrepreneurship. Until you become an entrepreneur, I doubt you are living life. Now, the fact about entrepreneurship is you can only be successful at entrepreneurship if you've had enough failures in the past. Unless you're a prodigy, unless you're somebody who's really God's gift to mankind,
Or
you're
backed
not
by a
going
lot
to
of
be a successful
backed financially to the hilt. Yeah.
irrespective of that. As an entrepreneur, you have to have a resume of failures to be a successful entrepreneur. I That is what I believe. And again, I'm not necessarily that my opinion or my point of view would be absolutely spot on, but from my experiences and from my understanding of the world around me, I believe you can only be a successful entrepreneur if you have a resume full of failures. This is what I try to explain to parents, that kids learn from their own mistakes. There are books out there in the world that have all the knowledge in the world, but most students learn from their own mistakes. And I quote my personal examples. I am never shy to tell parents about my poor academic past, because when I wake up every morning, I give it my 100%. And I believe when you give it your 100%, it shows. People are able to feel that energy, people are able to feel that enthusiasm. And students normally put in a good word for me with their parents. So their parents come to me expecting to speak, expecting they're going to be speaking with some scholar or some academician who's had it all figured out. And I'm never shy to tell them how poorly I performed during my school days and where I am today. So the same thing I tell parents, that see, failure is not final. Failure is one of the key building blocks to success. So don't, worry about what society is going to say. How are you going to tell your friends in your next party that your kid is not, fulfilling your expectations? Because tomorrow your kid might come up with some hidden talent that can revolutionize the world that you and I can't even identify or understand today. That is where this paradigm shift with AI and ML is opening opportunities that, Aubrey, honestly, I doubt even you would truly understand. Tech professionals are unable to 100% give us a definite answer about this technology.
Now this comes to the next
Okay.
question, right? So this is
Mhm.
where, so I work in sustainability, I work in rural development, right? And what really inspired me and the way you work really led me to say, you know what, it's amazing how our generation teachers are approaching teaching, and that is what, as I said, I really wanted to name a soap after you because of the amazing work you do. And also I want other people to know how you approach it. It's a very different concept. And I will put actually a few videos of the way you work, how you get your students to work as well, right? So I wanted to know now from my perspective of, say, I work on sustainability, I work on women empowerment, all these parts. So I just want to see how I can correlate it with what you do. Now, what is your opinion, right, of how students, are they sustainable? How are they following sustainability? Do they do anything as such?
So, Aubrey, again, I believe, sustainability is something that first world countries deal with, or it's a first world problem. Where in a country like India, unfortunately, people still refer to us as a third world country. And the reason for that being, trust me, we are working day in and day out. We are slogging just to make ends meet, Aubrey. I can even, again, quote myself personally. I work extremely hard, but I don't have all the luxuries in the world. I still have to save money for a extended period of time just to buy my family some basic presents or some basic gifts on their birthdays or on their anniversaries, so on and so forth. Long story short, the point being, we are still dealing with, if we talk about Maslow's need hierarchy, we're basically still on the first and second tier, and students are even below us. Students have not even been able to fulfill their psychological needs right now. So I doubt that a student who's not been able to identify who they are, what it is that they, like I said, they don't know their voice, they don't know their strengths, they don't know their attributes. I think sustainability for them is a foreign concept. Definitely in school, they've heard sustainability, sustainable development, sustainable farming practices, but it means, at least I'm talking about my students again, most of my students are from the economically weaker section of society. None of them are, Ambani or Danis. At the most, maybe some of them are from the upper middle class. But again, their goal in life is just to make their ends meet. They've seen their parents work really hard this past, 1.5, 2 decades, because most of them are around 15 to 20, 25 years old. They've really seen, and now they've come of that age where they've understood what hard work looks like and what hard work is. So for them, their focus is right now learning how to work hard because they don't know what hard work is. They've heard this concept, they've understood this concept. Again, unfortunately, social media has started, I won't say polluting their mind, but started incepting this idea in their head that smart work is better than hard work. But Aubrey, there's no substitution for hard work. There's just no substitution for it. So kids right now, they are figuring out what hard work looks like, how they will end up working hard, and what are the key skills they need to develop to work hard. Sustainability is nowhere on that list, as per my understanding.
So, what advice would you give your outgoing students?
Fail, but get up again. Don't stay down in the dumps. No successful person has achieved anything without failure. Failure is not the enemy, Aubrey. Pain is not the enemy. Sadness is not the enemy. These turn your, or what should I say, change your perception about these attributes or these aspects of life and use them as your driving force for the simple reason you can always have these in abundance. Happiness is a choice. Unfortunately, it's a fleeting choice.
Now,
Growth happens once a year, maybe if you're really lucky, once every 6 months. Peace of mind, again, very difficult to achieve. But on the contrary, you can be sad in a moment, you can be depressed in a moment, you can experience failure in a moment. Use these as drivers. Use this as your driving force. Don't, whenever you come across failure, don't sit in a corner and start doubting your self-worth. Don't lose your self-belief. Just know that failure is one of the best teachers, and you've encountered one of the best teachers. So there's no way that that teacher has not enhanced your life. Appreciate failure, enjoy sadness, and make conscious efforts to change depression into happiness.
wonderfully said. Now, bonus question, right? This is now we are both Anglo Indians, right? So, as an Anglo Indian, right? How do you see our community? First of all, how many Anglo Indians do you teach in your college or school? Number one. Number two is, how do you see this community growing or the future of this community?
So, Aubrey, this bonus question can actually be the topic of another discussion altogether on another day. But honestly, Aubrey, what is an Anglo Indian? Who is an Anglo Indian? As per my understanding, an Anglo Indian is basically somebody with European descendants who's living in India right now. Again, it was my grandfather and his father who were Europeans. My father, born and raised in this country, personally born and raised in this country. The only part about Europe that I know is what I see on maps or across, videos or movies. I've never even visited any European country personally myself. I have zero Anglo-Indian students in my classroom. And for the future of this community, I just see it, dwindling and dying a natural death because it has no relevance as per my understanding. Okay, probably in the 1940s, 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, it had some relevance because some of those European ancestors were still alive and living in India. Personally, I have a French grandmother who's 91 years old. By God's grace, she's still alive. But, a couple of decades down the line, I'm not even going to have my grandmother. So I literally have no family member alive right now who has any connection to any European culture. All of us, again, my grandparents had all of their kids in India, and my parents have had all of their kids in India. We have nothing to do with Europe. By God's grace, we have, above average communication skills, which when people ask us
No,
that, oh, how did you develop such
that
good
I agree. So
communication
that is
skills?
beside the point of having any. Let's forget having any connection with whatever with Europe, right? We have a community. We are Anglo Indians. We can't forget that, right? So where I am coming to, like for example, every in India you have a lot of cultures, you have a lot of communities, which Anglo Indians had. We had two seats that's removed in 2020, right? According to Mr. Ravi Prasad, who said there are only 296 Anglo Indians, so we are removing the seats, right? Where if you would go to a dance, you'll find more than 300 in a normal get together, right? So as a community where we have to get a little stronger, we have in the past we had amazing Anglo Indian schools. We do have that, right? A lot of Anglo Indians worked in the railways, right? But is there any sense of connect for our generation with this community? Let's not talk about the European side of us, but the Indian side of us. क्योंकि भाई साहब अपने भारतीय लोग हैं यार, हम तो बाहर नहीं जा रहे हैं, हम तो यहीं रहेंगे. हम कहाँ जा रहे हैं? So the idea is
Yeah, you said,
what
you
connect.
brought up a very good point.
Uh,
You brought up a very good point that, we had some of the best schools, or we ran some of the best schools. Again, that is something that I'm so proud of, that, Anglo Indians, as Anglo Indians, we try to teach people a better way to live, or a better way to, be prepared for life. And when we talk about, seats and reservations, Aubrey, it hurts my heart. It hurts my heart every single day, because my country is burning over these issues since as long as I can remember. I'm not going to be a person who's going to, want to contribute to that problem. That no, I want more seats, and as a community, we might be a minority, and it's okay, Aubrey. It's okay. I know what I am capable of. I know what my Anglo-Indian brothers and sisters are capable of. Aubrey, we don't need any reservations. We don't need any recognition. Why? Because we've come from that kind of ancestry where we've always been some of the pioneers. We've always been some of the front runners. We've always been some of the ideal examples that people have looked up to. So I'm never going to have to, I'm never going to be a person who's going to get political about this, or who's going to fight for rights of my community. All I say to my Anglo-Indian brothers and sisters is, remember who we are and do good work. Once you end up doing good work, trust me, the world will know your name. All said and done, Aubrey, how many Anglo Indians have actually done something noteworthy for the country? I'm talking about post the 1980s, post the 1990s, post 2000s. What are we doing for our country? Okay, we might want everything from our country. And again, that's what every community wants, that, we should have this and we should have that. Anglo Indians should be the ones who revolutionize this thought process. Anglo Indians are the ones who break the stereotype that we don't want anything. We'll give this country everything. I hope that's what other Anglo Indian brothers and sisters also strive to do in the future.
Yeah, fantastically, very well said, Kester. Thanks a ton. Appreciate the time taken.
My pleasure, brother.
And have a great day, man.
Pleasure's all mine.
Bye.